right, what's going on, y'all? So today we're going to talk about something that's not talked about very often in the bodybuilding world, and that's the individual response to steroids. I've had quite a bit of experience the last few years in this industry. I've had many cycles under my belt. I have many clients that they of course have run steroids, and then I know other pros in the industry. I know exactly what they've been running personally, and I can tell you there's a very large variance in the response to steroids. And there's two big factors that's frankly not talked about very often in regards to this. So that's what we're going to cover today. First off, I want to get out of the way, this is not covering, you need to have your training in place, you need to have your diet in place. I'm assuming you guys already know that because, someone could go ahead and run steroids but not have, the intensity in the gym, not have a good diet in place, and they're just frankly not going to get what they could get out of steroids. A lot of people you see in the gym are running steroids or SARMs, and you wouldn't even know it. They don't even look like they're enhanced, and that's because they just don't have the proper training, the proper diet in place. Not saying steroids won't work if you just take them and you don't have that in place, but you're not going to get what you could get out of them if you did. So we need to get that out of the way. That's not what we're covering today. But if you want to get the most out of steroids, you've got to have the proper training in place and the proper diet in place. And this is how you can really advance yourselves years ahead of the competition without having to blast just insane amounts of gear if you do have those factors locked down way better than the competition. So with that out of the way, first I want to talk about the individual response to compounds and doses themselves. So I've noticed with many clients, some people just respond to testosterone better, some people respond to DHTs better, some people respond to nandrolone better. I could put someone on the same exact training, the same exact diet as another person, knowing they have the same exact intensity in the gym, all of that, and I could put one on 500 milligrams of test a week, the other on 500 milligrams of test per week, and after 16 weeks, the response to that testosterone is going to be quite different. So first off, there's individual response to the compound itself. All of this is genetic. So some people just respond to, testosterone's better. Some people, if you give them, quite a bit of testosterone, they're going to grow like an absolute weed. Whereas other people, they're not going to. And that'll also play into the second factor I'm going to talk about in a bit. But when it comes down to compound selection, this is largely genetic in itself too. So someone, you could put them on a really low dose of testosterone, but put them on a high dose of DHT like Primo, and they're going to have, a fantastic growth cycle on that. Whereas I could do the same with another person, they're not going to. The other factor here, and this is a big one, is doses. All the time I see, a pro put out their cycle of what they're running and people call bullshit on it, thinking the doses are too low and that they're really running a lot more. There are people in the industry that lie, but I can tell you firsthand, knowing other pros out there, there are people that frankly don't run these mega doses of gear. There are some pros that do. I know some personally too. But there are people that, just frankly don't need these high amounts of doses to get a lot out of it. Some people can get a lot out of a lot less. This is me personally. I've run moderate doses, but I've never had to go. A gram of tests per week plus. Whereas there's another YouTuber out there, I'm not going to name names, where he just got done doing 18 to 20 IUs of growth per day and 3 grams of testosterone a week. And frankly, in my opinion, just doesn't look like the other pros I know. And this comes down to genetic response. Some people are going to be able to get a lot out of little, and some people are going to need a lot more than other people. And this is where you just got to deal with the cards you've been handed. It kind of sucks if you're on the end that you don't respond really well, to steroids. But you got to deal with that card, and then that's where you can also, play with it and see if, maybe if I don't respond well to testosterone, maybe I'll respond really well to a DHT like Primo or Mastron, or maybe, I'll respond well if I add in a little bit of nandrolone like MPP. But the point here is just because a pro says they're running, say 750 milligrams of test per week or even lower than that, and they're massive, a massive mass monster. A lot of times they're not actually lying, guys. They're getting a lot out of it because of their genetics. The other factor, the second factor, this is the factor I don't hear talked about a lot, and this is a huge one in competitive bodybuilding, is how well the individual responds as far as not getting side effects. Because if you don't get side effects, you essentially can run more amounts of gear than someone else that would. So, a good example of this is someone that aromatizes easily. So someone, I can put someone on 500 milligrams of test, and if they don't have their estrogen in control, running at a anti-estrogen or, DHT to help bring that down, they're going to aromatize and get gyno really, really, really quickly. Whereas I could put someone on, 600, 750 milligrams of test per week, and even without, an AI in place or anything like that, they're not going to aromatize at all. So that's a first big one, is side effects, but that's what you're seeing more on the exterior. The big one here is your health markers. So how well can you actually tolerate the steroids without it negatively impacting your health as fast as it would some people? So some people, will run a pretty mild cycle, and they get done and they pull blood work, and everything's out of whack. Their lipids are out of whack. Their blood pressure is out of whack. They've got all these problems across the board, where someone else can run a pretty hefty cycle with even tren in place. In 2 weeks post-cycle, their blood work looks clean. I'm not recommending that, if you're one of those people that, has pretty healthy blood work and can tolerate these compounds, well, to just go ahead and blast them. But this is a big point. There's been a lot of open pros throughout the year that have talked openly about this, that, they were able to get by with mega doses of gear, not really affecting their health markers. And that's a big point. That's probably the biggest point across the board, is not only the individual's response to the compounds and the dose themselves and how much they can get out of, whether they need to run mega doses or whether they can get a lot out of little. But also there are some people that can run hefty amounts of gear and their health markers just aren't going to be as impacted as fast as other people out there. With all that being said, even those people still need to be really, really careful, because that's not considering, what it's doing to their cardiovascular system and all of that. But by and large, most of the open pros out there, many of them don't need mega doses. And even the ones that do need mega doses, their health markers are more intact than other people, even with smaller amounts. So a big point of all of this is there is a very, very large genetic component, even when it comes to steroids. So not only is there the genetic component of, how much muscle can you put on your frame, how fast do you put muscle on, how fast can you burn fat, how much fat do you hold, all of that. There's a huge genetic component to the steroids themselves. You guys got to think, these are, just like any other medicine. Some people are going to take certain medicines and get some side effects. Other people will take certain medicines and get no side effects. This is the same thing with steroids. And, some people can get great results using just a little. Some people, to get great results, they're going to need a lot. Some people won't even get great results using a lot. So big point here is there is a huge genetic component when it comes to steroids themselves that not a lot of people talk about. And there's quite a big variance. I've been coaching tons and tons of clients over the last few years, and I can tell you it is a great variance across the board. And that's why you really got to know your own body, or if you have a coach that you work with for quite a long period of time. That way you can swap things in and out, and you can really dial in what works well for your body and your genetics. Because like I said, someone could respond extremely well to a low dose of testosterone, high dose of DHT, and that might be crap for someone else. So this is where you just got to really know your body. If you are someone that you feel like you don't have great genetics for steroids, you might want to reconsider, your dreams of maybe making it to Olympia. But, I'm not saying, you just need to quit bodybuilding because of it. This is where you take the time to as safely as possible, because steroids do have health impacts. But take the time to swap things in and out, try different compounds, and if you're going to try heavier doses, taper up. Don't go ahead and just slam, a gram of test if the most you've ever done is 500. And like I said, guys, I personally have been able to build the physique I've got off of, relatively moderate doses. They're definitely higher than the beginners out there and most amateurs, but most pros I know, I've been able to get by on a lot less. And I know other pros that, they are the same. They don't need a ton of gear to build a really impressive physique. And at the same time, I know other pros that they've run an absolute crap ton, but at the same time, their blood work, I've seen some of their blood work personally, and their blood work looks fine. So this is where there is a huge individual response. Don't just call bullshit when someone puts out their cycle and it looks really mild. Take it with a grain of salt because they could be lying. But at the same time, they might not be. A lot of people have great genetics in response to these certain compounds, whereas other people just don't. And if you are someone that, you've been running, certain cycles, you've run multiple cycles and you just feel like you're not getting a lot out of it, go back to the drawing board because there is a great chance that your diet or training is not locked in. I've been doing the pro bodybuilding thing for a bit now, and, knowing a lot of other pros out there, we all mostly live like robots. And, when it comes to training time, the phone's down, each working set is taken to failure, mostly past failure, with extremely perfect range of motion, time under tension, all of that, with really, really meticulous split design, movement layout, all of that. And most people just don't really have that in place. So that's where I'd first say, go back to the drawing board, go back to the basics, look at your training, look at your diet, and then realize that there is a huge genetic component in place. And if you are someone that gets a lot out of little, I've got a couple clients right now that they're growing at insanely fast rates on, frankly, really, really low gear. There's no reason to raise it from there. Over time, you might have to, depending on how much mass you put on your frame. But if you respond really well to low doses with certain compounds, rock on. That's going to have a much greater health outcome than someone that's got to go ahead and blast a crap ton to get that same outcome. But this is definitely a question I've gotten a lot. Definitely something I've seen quite a while. I've seen some guys running just, in my opinion, absurdly insane cycles, and they're putting it out here on YouTube. And I'm telling you guys, to get like the open pros, many open pros don't even run, 18 to 20 IUs of growth a day and 3 grams of test. There are some that do that, but I know personally some that, they run way less. So just keep that in mind. But I hope you guys got something out of this video. If you did, go ahead and smash that like button and be happy, be positive, be powerful. Have a great rest of your day.